This is exactly the spark the Habs needed as they found their next superstar in this series against the Washington Capitals. And we also have an update as it pertains to multiple players returning to the lineup, which has serious implications on the result of this series. It's not done yet. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 71% of you or 72% of you who watch these videos are not actually subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening around the NHL and of course the Stanley Cup playoffs, and things are really heating up as it pertains to the playoffs and of course off-season moves. A lot of coaches are getting fired already. So if you want to stay up to date with everything in the NHL, it's free. Go down below, hit that subscribe button. But let's dive right into it today. KC, we have multiple updates from the Montreal Canadiens as it pertains to their series against the Washington Capitals, and it's not done yet. They're down 3-1, but still a very young and exciting team, and they're getting some reinforcements, or it looks like they're getting some reinforcements, and let's dive right into it. No Alex Carrier still for the Montreal Canadiens, and as we saw a couple games ago, Sam Montembeault went down with an injury. He's not on the ice either for the Montreal Canadiens. Brendan Gallagher, Josh Anderson, and David Savard also absent. Not so much worried about the last three mentioned there. We'll get to that in a second, but they are missing a couple players like Patrik Laine still, but he is considered day-to-day, so I do wonder if he squeaks his way into this next game, or maybe you see him in the next game if the Montreal Canadiens do pull out a win in Game 5. But what are your thoughts on all of this so far? And I mean, like, some weird, interesting stuff going on with the roster as well, because with Carrier out, that makes things a lot more interesting.
Yeah, definitely. You said it right. There's a lot of interesting things happening in Montreal over these last couple of days. Obviously, down 3-1 in the series, but Darius, the last time they were down 3-1 in the series with a backup goaltender in the crease, it was against the Washington Capitals, and they came back and they won that series. And they also did it a few years ago against the Toronto Maple Leafs as well. So you can never count this team out of a series because I think they have a lot of momentum still on their side. I think with some players nearing return, like you said, it's definitely one that they can overcome and battle through. I think a guy like Patrik Laine, yes, he hasn't been the best this series. There's no doubt about that. A lot of Habs fans are wanting him to stay out of this lineup, but I think if you get this guy back in, he's day-to-day. He was at practice yesterday skating. So I think if he can come in as a game-time decision here this evening, come in on the third line, you don't even need to put him back in on the second line because I think the top six right now is playing good and you don't want to wreck that momentum. I think these games have been very, very close, and a bounce either other way is the deciding factor of these games. So getting a goal scorer in like Patrik Laine, trying to give him a little extra push, maybe the boys give him an extra bump in the room, try to get some momentum going with this guy, and trying to get a few goals out of him in these upcoming games is definitely going to be huge. I think getting him in on the third line, maybe testing him out with Anderson and Gallagher or somebody like that, I think could definitely help this guy because I think that those veteran guys like Gallagher, Anderson, and Savard, and these guys have been the deciding factor of this series, just being able to keep these young guys' mindset straight. And obviously, like you said, they were held out of practice yesterday, but that was just maintenance reasons. So, that's the reason they're out. We don't have to worry about injury with those guys at all. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what unfolds here in Montreal today because there's a lot of guys out. Like you said, Carrier right now is still listed as day-to-day. I mean, he took a big headshot in the last game. I do not suspect him to come back tonight. I would love to see him back because he's been a rock for them on the defense all series long. I think a guy that's going to draw back in here for Montreal this evening if Carrier is out is Jayden Struble. I know Carrier does play that right side, but it's all they can do in this situation. They're going to have to bring Struble in, and somebody's going to have to switch from left to right, and that I think that will end up as the third pairing. I think maybe we see Hutson and Gooley maybe switch to the first pairing, or maybe we see Hutson and Matheson combined together. It'll be interesting to see how Marty tackles this lineup with all the injuries that are around today, Darius.
Absolutely, yeah. They got a bunch of injuries, and obviously you want to be very careful when it comes to putting people back into the lineup too, especially if they haven't played the whole series. Like, it's a very tricky situation. So we'll see what happens with Patrik Laine. I think it's an interesting situation with how well Carrier's been playing, and he's probably not going to be available, right? But it's a very interesting conversation. Speaking of injuries and guys missing time and not in the lineup, Sam Montembeault. He's been great for the Montreal Canadiens this season, sporting a 908 in the playoffs, which if you look at it, maybe not great in years past, but he's giving you above league average goaltending, which is good enough, I think, for this team right now. He's had a stellar season, and obviously getting hurt on this play, this Ryan Leonard shot, which I said he was going to have an impact in the series. I didn't think it was going to be this way. I thought it was going to be more with the goal scoring, but did get injured on this play, and it doesn't look like he's actually going to return this year, although we don't actually know, but that's what they're saying at this point, that he may not return. And if you look at everything from his advanced analytics to just the regular statistics and all of that, he's been really, really solid for this Montreal Canadiens team. What are you seeing from Sam Montembeault, and do you think Dobes in the net can get another win for the Montreal Canadiens? Is he the guy that's going to be able to backstop this team?
Yeah, there's no doubt through the first couple of games of this series, Sam Montembeault kept this team in it and was a reason that they did get a win earlier on in this series. But it's night and day with Dobes. I think Dobes is a good goaltender, but he doesn't live up to what Montembeault has been doing for this team all season. Montembeault has been a rock. He makes game-saving saves. He really keeps this team in it at time to time. And yes, we have seen flashes of that with Dobes over these last couple of games. I think he is a great goaltender. It's just not the type of guy that we're seeing in Montembeault. His play this offseason has been incredible. This guy has made some insane saves and just kept this team in. And I think Dobes has done that as well. But it's going to be interesting to see how it goes, because last game he did let a little bit of a weak one go in. He cut in the middle of the ice. It kind of went top corner. Maybe there isn't nothing that he could do on that save, but it did look like a little bit of a weak one to me. But this is just growing pains with the young goaltender, right? I think Dobes is a great goaltender. There's no doubt about it. And I think when he locks it in and he gets hot, he's a hard goaltender to get shots past, because we've seen him when he got called up earlier this season beat top teams like the Colorado Avalanche, like the Florida Panthers. This guy went on a crazy run. So if we can see this guy show up tonight, I think Montreal definitely comes away with the win, and I think Dobes can definitely keep this team in it the same way as Montembeault can.
Absolutely. I think he's a great goaltender. I think he's only going to get better. Again, he's younger, and if they don't end up winning another game in this series, I think it's good that he at least got the experience of being in the playoffs for the Montreal Canadiens, so that's something to take out of it as well, which is, something you want. Both goaltenders, I know the circumstances are not great with Montembeault getting injured, but you got both goaltenders in a series here. The other thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up here is Ivan Demidov. I mean, he just came over with just a handful of games left in the regular season. He's been, if you're looking at the eye test, and we're going to look at some statistics and analytics in a second, just the eye test, he's one of the best players out there, especially offensively for the Montreal Canadiens. And Cole Caufield spoke out on him being on power play 1 now, and he said he's obviously one hell of a hockey player. He's his drive to want to be one of the best is very noticeable, and he hops in everywhere, and he's one of the best players on the ice, so we're very lucky. So that's great praise from such a great player in the Montreal Canadiens as well. And Demidov is now on power play 1, and he said it's helping me feel more confident. He looks confident out there, again, just by the eye test. A lot of people are comparing him statistically and analytically to Patrik Kane, which is great company. Multiple time Stanley Cup champion and one of the best American-born players of all time. So that's really good company as well. I mean, he's the youngest Montreal Canadiens player, and I'll throw it over to you in a second, KC, for your thoughts. I'll let you run with it, but he's the youngest Montreal Canadiens player in history with a multi-point playoff game. Like, just absurd stuff that we're seeing from Demidov right now. And he's also leading the Montreal Canadiens in expected goals per 60 minutes as well, 5-on-5. Like, he's absolutely unbelievable so far in this series. So, Casey, I'll throw it over to you. What are you seeing from Demidov? Has his game translated well to the NHL level, and is he ready for prime time? What are you seeing from him in the playoffs?
Yeah, I definitely think this guy's ready. I think what I've seen out of this guy is a top 3 player on the team. And at times, he has been the top player on the team for this Montreal Canadiens team. I mean, we haven't seen a guy with hands like this in Montreal probably ever. I mean, the stuff he's doing on that blue line, coming down the boards and just faking out defenders is ridiculous. He's putting the puck between his legs, coming down the boards, beating defenders with ease, and he has looked great. There has been times, yes, where maybe he throws the puck out of the zone, maybe he throws a bad pass into the middle of the ice. We have seen this, but you got to think, this guy's 19 years old, experience-wise. He's not even in 10 NHL games, I don't think, yet. So, I mean, there's going to be growing pains with this, this, but for the most side, it is upside with Demidov. What we've seen out of this guy right now is ridiculous. Like you said, his expected goals is the best on the team, and if he can start to generate those scoring chances into goals, this is going to really help give this Montreal Canadiens team momentum going forward. I think keeping him on power play 1 is definitely the best way to do it. I think if Laine does come back in this lineup tonight, I don't think the power play changes at all, because I think Demidov adds a little bit of an extra element to that power play unit. I mean, Laine was always the guy who was going to set up in his spot, and that's where you know he was going to be. But with Demidov, everybody can kind of move around and cycle the puck a bit more, and then you can find more people cutting in open space. And I think that's adding a better element to this power play unit, and I think that's the reason why they've been successful in these past couple of games where he's been on the power play 1 unit. So it's going to be interesting to see how he finishes out this series and see how clutch this guy is, because obviously it's do or die tonight. Everybody's going to be out there battling. Marty St. Louis said we're coming back for another game in his press interview yesterday. So it's going to be interesting to see. The mindset in the team is that they're winning tonight, and I think having a young X factor in Demidov there to help this team out is definitely going to be one to watch for, and a guy that I'm looking at tonight.
Absolutely, and I think everyone can agree that he's a more dynamic player already than Patrik Laine, and no disrespect to Patrik Laine, he's a great weapon there on the power play, but it just, lengthens the rest of the lineup. It makes it more dynamic, the power play that is. So I do expect to see him on the power play for sure. I think he's kind of maybe found a home there at this point. So it's going to be exciting to watch. And one other team around the league said the same thing as Martin St. Louis, that we're coming back home for Game 6, and that was the Ottawa Senators, and they ended up doing that. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Montreal Canadiens end up doing that. We'll see what happens tonight. Again, do or die, and I feel like a lot of players, especially with what we've seen from the Montreal Canadiens so far and their drive from a lot of these young players, they're going to try their hardest. They're going to try and force that Game 6. And Washington's feeling fat and happy right now, right? Like they're like, we're up in the series, we've been here before, so maybe you catch them off guard. It should be a really, really good game, and I do expect that the Habs actually will push this to 6, but we'll see what happens, Casey. But we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about, of course, Montembeault. Is Dobes the guy? Let us know in the comments. Let us know about Demidov and how you feel about him. I think he's the next star of the Montreal Canadiens. We're seeing a budding star in front of our eyes right now. He's only 19 years old. So let us know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything going on around the NHL and, of course, with the Montreal Canadiens.